Hey there. So, you've been through the storm of divorce, and now you're standing at the edge of the dating pool again. But let me ask you this, does it feel like the rules have changed since the last time you were single? Like everyone's swiping left or right, and you're just trying to figure out how to even start a conversation without sounding like a textbook from 2005? Trust me, you're not alone. Dating after divorce isn't just about getting back out there, it's about reinventing how you approach relationships entirely. And if you're over 35, the game's different now. But here's the good news, it's not about keeping up with the trends. It's about knowing yourself, what you want, and how to avoid the pitfalls that trip up so many guys in your shoes. Today, we're breaking down 6 essential rules to help you navigate this new terrain with confidence. Let's start with the first 3. Rule 1, take time to heal. Let's get real for a second. Divorce isn't just a legal process, it's an emotional earthquake. And just like you wouldn't rebuild a house on cracked foundations, you can't jump into a new relationship without patching up the cracks in your heart first. I've seen too many guys think, if I just find someone new, the pain will go away. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It just buries the hurt under a layer of distraction. Take my buddy Mike. 6 months after his divorce, he was on 3 dating apps, lining up back-to-back coffee dates, convinced he could outrun the loneliness. But every time a date fizzled, it felt like another failure. He wasn't dating, he was using strangers as band-aids. It took him a year of therapy, journaling, and weekends alone hiking to realize he'd been avoiding the real work, grieving the loss of his marriage. Here's the thing, healing isn't a race. There's no trophy for jumping into bed with someone new the fastest. It's about asking yourself the hard questions. What did I learn from my marriage? What do I need to let go of? What patterns do I not want to repeat? This isn't navel-gazing, it's strategic. The stronger your emotional foundation, the better your next relationship will be. So give yourself permission to take 6 months, a year, whatever you need. And if you're sitting there thinking, but what if I'm ready sooner? Trust me, you'll know. When the idea of dating excites you instead of terrifying you, when you're not comparing every new person to your ex, that's your green light. Rule 2, rediscover who you are. Alright, let's say you've done the work. You've processed the divorce, you've cried into your bourbon, you've rage-chopped firewood. Now what? This is where most guys make a critical mistake. They try to re-enter the dating scene as the same person they were before their marriage. But here's the kicker, you're not that guy anymore. Divorce changes you. Maybe you've forgotten what makes you tick outside of being a husband or a dad. Maybe you've spent years molding yourself to someone else's expectations. This is your chance to hit reset. Think of it like a software update. What lights you up now? What hobbies did you shelve because your ex hated them? Ever wanted to learn salsa? Restore a vintage car? Join a rec league softball team? This isn't just about filling time, it's about rebuilding your identity. Take Dave, a guy I coached who'd spent 15 years as a workaholic husband. Post-divorce, he signed up for a pottery class on a whim. Turns out, he's a ceramics wizard. Now, he's got confidence, stories, and a kitchen full of lopsided coffee mugs. When he started dating again, he wasn't just Dave the divorced guy, he was Dave the guy who throws pottery and cracks terrible dad jokes. That's magnetic. And here's a pro tip, rediscovering yourself isn't selfish. It's armor against desperation. When you know your worth outside a relationship, you won't settle for someone who doesn't see it. So make a list, what's one thing you've always wanted to try? Do it. Not for Instagram, not to impress dates, for you. Rule 3, be brutally honest about what you want. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room, intentions. After divorce, a lot of guys swing between 2 extremes. Either they're terrified of commitment and ghost anyone who mentions future plans, or they're so hungry for stability they'll propose to the first person who laughs at their jokes. Neither works. The fix? Get crystal clear on what you're looking for before you download a single app. Are you dipping a toe in the water with casual dating? Looking for a serious partner? Or just craving companionship without labels? There's no wrong answer, but you've got to own it. Take Steve, a 42-year-old single dad. He told me, "I just want someone to go to concerts with and split a pizza afterward. No drama, no meet the kids talk." So he put that in his dating profile. Yeah, some people unmatched him immediately. But the ones who stayed, they were on the same page. Now he's got a rotating crew of concert buddies and zero pressure. Here's the kicker: honesty isn't just about what you say, it's about listening to what you really want, not what you think you should want. Maybe society says a guy your age needs to remarry ASAP. Maybe your buddies are pushing you to play the field. Ignore the noise. If you want something casual, own it. If you're ready for love again, say it. The right people will respect you for it, and you'll dodge months of mismatched expectations. Now, these first 3 rules? They're your foundation. Heal, rediscover yourself, get clear on your intentions, do that, and you're already ahead of 90% of guys out there. But here's where it gets interesting. Once you've laid that groundwork, the real work begins, navigating the modern dating world without losing your grip on who you are. And trust me, that's where most men stumble. Let's talk about the modern dating world for a second. Swipe culture, ghosting, TikTok pickup lines, it's enough to make you want to swear off dating apps and start carrier pigeoning love letters. But here's the truth: the tools might have changed, but the fundamentals of human connection, those are timeless. And if you've done the inner work we talked about earlier, you're already holding the cheat code. Now it's time to put that self-awareness into action. Let's dive into the next 2 rules that'll keep you from getting lost in the noise. Rule 4, set boundaries like your happiness depends on it, because it does. You know what's sexy at 40? Boundaries. Not the "I'll never let anyone in again" kind, but the "I respect myself enough to know what I won't tolerate" kind. After divorce, a lot of guys swing between 2 extremes. They either become doormats, afraid to speak up and lose someone new, or turn into emotional Fort Knox, walls up, drawbridge closed. Neither works. Healthy boundaries are about knowing your limits and communicating them clearly, without apology. Take Alex, a guy I know who jumped into dating 6 months post-divorce. He met a woman who wanted to text all day, every day. At first, it felt validating. But soon, he was missing workouts, skipping his son's soccer games, and lying awake at 2 a.m. answering "you up" messages. He didn't want to seem needy, so he said nothing. By month 2, he was burnt out and resentful. Sound familiar? Here's what he learned: boundaries aren't restrictions, they're invitations for respect. When he finally told her, "I'm not available after 9 p.m. because I need time to unwind," something funny happened. She didn't bolt. Instead, she mirrored his honesty and admitted she felt pressured to keep up the constant contact too. Here's how to do it right. Identify your non-negotiables. Maybe it's no last-minute cancellations, or "I won't date someone who badmouths their ex constantly." Communicate them early. Drop them casually into conversation, like, "Just FYI, I'm an early bird. If you text me past 10, I'll probably reply with a sleepy emoji." Enforce them gently but firmly. If someone crosses a line, don't ghost, just say, "Hey, I mentioned X is important to me. Let's revisit that." The right person won't just tolerate your boundaries, they'll appreciate the clarity. Rule 5, embrace vulnerability, even when it feels like kryptonite. Let's address the V word. For a lot of guys over 35, vulnerability sounds like code for weakness. You grew up in an era where men were told to suck it up, dust themselves off, and never let them see you sweat. But here's the irony: the older you get, the more vulnerability becomes your superpower. Think about it: at this stage, most people you'll date have baggage. They've been hurt. They've failed. They've got exes and regrets and insecurities. Pretending you don't? That's what comes off as fake. I'll give you an example. Tom, a 44-year-old engineer, went on a date with a woman who asked, "So, why'd your marriage end?" Instead of his usual script, "We grew apart," he took a breath and said, "Honestly, I stopped prioritizing her. I buried myself in work, assumed she'd always be there, and by the time I looked up, it was too late. It's my biggest regret. For a heartbeat, he panicked. Too much. Too soon? But then she replied, "Thank you for saying that. My divorce happened because I didn't speak up about what I needed." Feels like we both learned the hard way. That conversation became the foundation of a relationship that's now 2 years strong. Vulnerability isn't trauma dumping on the first date. It's sharing a funny story about a failure. I once tried to cook lasagna for a date and set off the fire alarm. Admitting when you're nervous, first dates still make my palms sweat. No shame, right? Asking real questions instead of sticking to safe topics. What's something you're secretly proud of? It's about letting someone see the human behind the profile. And guess what? The more you own your story, the messy, imperfect, still growing parts, the more others will trust you with theirs. Now, boundaries and vulnerability might feel like opposites, but they're two sides of the same coin. One protects your peace, the other deepens your connections. Master both, and you're not just dating, you're building something real. But there's one last rule that ties everything together. It's the difference between repeating old mistakes and stepping into a relationship that actually fits the man you've become. Let's cut to the chase. The biggest mistake I see guys make after divorce isn't swiping left on the wrong people, it's swiping right on the same person, over and over. You know what I'm talking about. That eerie sense of déjà vu when a new date picks a fight over something trivial, or when you catch yourself falling into the same old dynamic that tanked your marriage. It's like your brain stuck on a loop, replaying a song you already hate. But here's the truth, breaking that cycle isn't about finding a better partner. It's about becoming a better student of your own history. That brings us to the final rule, the one that turns everything we've talked about into real, lasting change. Rule 6, learn from the past, don't rebuild it. Picture this, you're at a diner, halfway through a first date. She laughs at your jokes, asks thoughtful questions, and when the check comes, she insists on splitting it. Everything's going great, until she casually mentions she's not really into labels and has a habit of keeping things open. Suddenly, your stomach drops. Not because there's anything wrong with her preferences, but because it's exactly how your ex started out. Your brain screams, abort mission. But your heart whispers, maybe this time will be different. Here's the hard part, the past isn't a blueprint. It's a lesson. I worked with a guy named Greg who had a type, free-spirited, unpredictable woman who kept him on his toes. Translation, he'd spent 20 years chasing partners who mirrored his chaotic, emotionally unavailable dad. After his third post-divorce flameout, he finally asked himself, why do I keep equating anxiety with passion? So he did something radical. He dated someone boring. Well, not boring, stable. A nurse with a 10 p.m. bedtime who quoted the Great British Bake Off more than Nietzsche. At first, it felt too easy. No drama, no guessing games. But 6 months in? He told me, I finally get it. Calm isn't boring, it's peace. And I'm addicted to it now. How do you break the cycle? Start here. Spot your patterns. Did your ex criticize your career? Notice if you're hypersensitive to feedback from dates. Interrogate your attraction. That spark you feel? Make sure it's not just familiarity in disguise. Rewrite the script. If you always played the rescuer, try dating someone who's got their life together. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about empowering yourself. Every failed relationship hands you a cheat sheet. Use it. Let's tie this all together. Healing, rediscovery, honesty, boundaries, vulnerability, and breaking old cycles, these aren't just rules. They're tools. Tools to rebuild a dating life that doesn't just look good on paper, but actually feels good in your bones. Because here's the secret no one tells you, dating after divorce isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about finding someone who fits the complete person you've worked so hard to become. So where do you start? Tonight, grab a notebook. Write down one lesson from your marriage that you refuse to repeat. Then, write down one thing you've discovered about yourself post-divorce that you're proud of. That's your compass. The first line of a new story. And hey, if you're sitting there thinking, easier said than done, I get it. Change is messy. You'll have days where you'll miss your ex, days where dating apps make you want to toss your phone into a lake, days where vulnerability feels like swallowing broken glass. But remember, every guy who's ever rebuilt a great relationship after divorce started exactly where you are now. Tired, wary, but daring to hope anyway. So tell me in the comments, what's your Rule 7? What's the one lesson divorce taught you about love? Let's keep this conversation going. And if this video resonated with you, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to show this to other guys who need to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because next week, we're diving into how to rebuild trust in yourself after a lifetime of doubting it. Until then, remember, your past doesn't own your future. The best chapters aren't behind you, they're waiting to be written. Go write them.